Hi everyone, I'm Chen. 大家好，我叫崔晨 and this is a pilot episode of A Day in Beijing. Before I take you inside of the Forbidden City or walk you through Beijing's hutongs, I want to tell you three things. Who I am, why this podcast exists, and what you can expect from it. Because it didn't start as a podcast, it didn't even start as a plan, it started as a frustration. So, I was born and raised in Beijing. Grew up here, did my law degree in China, worked in a big fancy law firm for a bit, and realized quickly it might not be the best career fit for me. But I'll say this, it completely changed how I think and how I solve problems, and I am grateful for that. Then, at the age of 22, I decided to move to the UK to study a subject I had zero experience in my second language, purely because I was fascinated by it, social anthropology. I did my master's degree at LSE in London, and as life goes, no matter how much you plan it, it always has a way to surprise you. I stayed in London for 10 years. Here's the thing when you leave abroad for that long. You become this weird in-between person. Before London, I never felt particularly Chinese or particularly Beijing. Then you move to the UK. Suddenly, you feel Chinese when you're in London and British when you come home to Beijing. I know so many of my fellow immigrant friends out there know exactly what I'm talking about. You see your own city through a completely different lens, and you see the country you're living in through a lens that nobody around you has. In those 10 years, I built a career in brand strategy and media planning. Worked on campaigns, pitched charity cases, sold products, hit targets, met lots of talented people, and learned incredible amount from everyone. But after a decade, I hit this moment of feeling numb. I hit the classic mid-30s crisis. And around the same time, I think any immigrant goes through this too. You know your parents not getting any younger. After COVID especially, I feel this urge that I could not ignore anymore. So, along with my husband, who I met in London, we quit our jobs and traveled for a year, and then came back to give Beijing a proper go for the first time in my life. Coming home has made me think. Beijing has countless cool spots, but because of the language barrier and the no Google system, and what I can only describe as a pretty muddy package tour market, navigating the city as a visitor isn't as easy as it should be. I've seen this before. My international friends and family visit and leave confused, overwhelmed, not because they didn't care, because they did care and the city didn't meet them halfway. And it made me so frustrated. I wanted so badly to show people the Beijing I see every day. And I keep coming back to this and thought, can I help? Maybe there's a way to build something where Beijingers share real access and local knowledge through designed and curated experiences. Celebrating differences without judgment has always mattered the most to me. And maybe now I have the chance to help others to see my hometown the way I see it. Without political filters, without stereotypes, without the intimidation, without the endless figuring how everything works. And definitely not with a TikTok viral video that's trying to explain 5,000 years of history in 30 seconds. And definitely not from someone who visited once and all of a sudden become a Chinese expert. I thought there had to be a better way, so I started building a solution. I came back to Beijing with this ideal version of connecting people to the real city. And then I started looking at what was actually happening on the ground. And the reality was harder than I expected. Beijing's independent businesses are disappearing. When I started digging into the numbers, it truly shocked me. Nearly 3 million restaurants, cafés, and bars closed across China last year. 3 million. Most of them are small, family-run. The chains are winning, which I know is a global issue. China's chain rate in food and beverages has climbed past 24%, and it is still rising. On the other hand, the survival rate for independents under 30%. Look at craft beer as just one example. There are about 3,000 breweries in China, but 95% of all beer sales still go to the national giants. These small breweries are pouring their souls into something meaningful and matters to them. But the market is squeezing them out from every direction. And on top of that, there's what I call the digital invisible wall. China's internet runs on super apps. WeChat, Alipay, Dianping, Meituan, Didi, Xiaohongshu, and Douyin. The rest of the world runs on Instagram, Google, TripAdvisor. Two completely different ecosystems. Neither speaks to the other. If you're a Hutong coffee shop owner and you want international visitors to find you, you need algorithm specialists, data analysts, bilingual marketers. They can't afford that. So those incredible businesses just don't exist to the outside world. They're invisible. Meanwhile, international visitors are stuck in what I call a historical bubble. Beijing is not Shanghai and it's not Hong Kong. Those cities have been polished for the international audiences. English signs everywhere. Google could even work. Beijing, no VPN, no Google, no English signs at most places. The city does not change itself to pander to anyone. It never has. That's why I love it so much. But what happens then? Visitors default to what's ticketed and signposted. The Forbidden City, the Great Wall, and that's it. Beijing had over 5 million inbound trips last year. It went up almost 40% year on year. But the footfall stays concentrated around the major landmarks. And that's not because visitors don't want more. The places where actual Beijingers spend their time, the independent bars, the neighborhood restaurants, the craft studios, underground raves, those places have no way of reaching international visitors, and international visitors have no way of finding them. So now you see where I come from. You've got this gigantic gap here. On one hand, independent businesses that represent modern Beijing, vibrant, gritty, resilient, the actual real living city. But they can't reach the outside. On the other hand, visitors who genuinely want to go deeper but don't know how. The history is what brings people here. But it's a living city. The people running business every day, making things every day, building community every day, that makes Beijing extraordinary. I sit right in the middle of that gap. I grew up here. I spent a decade learning how to build brands and tell stories. I've lived as an immigrant, so I understand what it's like to navigate a place that wasn't built with you in mind. And look, China is gigantic. Each region has its own culture, its own traditions. I cannot speak for all of them, but I know Beijing. This is my city. So that's where I'm starting. What if I build a megaphone to connect the indie businesses with the people who actually want to find them? That's how A Day in Beijing started. A cultural experience curator, small groups or private experiences, no flags, no earpieces, no petting to tourism. You pay the venue directly. The breweries, the bars, the coffee roasters, the art studios, the restaurants. We charge curation fee. That's it. Now, the landmarks. I never planned to cover them. I figured the Forbidden City, the Great Wall, those already have established operators with big teams and big budgets. I'll focus on the hidden Beijing, the real living Beijing. But my guests and my friends kept coming back with the same frustration. Chen, the Forbidden City was overwhelming. 50 people following a flag, a crackling earpiece that kept cutting out. A guide rushing through so fast I couldn't stop and look at anything. I spent 3 hours inside and I genuinely don't know what I just saw. And I'm not even joking. Some of my best friends who got ADHD, they even pretended to get lost in the Forbidden City from their tour group because it was too overwhelming for them. It was a total sensory overload. I heard that so many times and it bothered me because these people who actually cared enough to go, they wanted to understand. The experience just failed them. But then my imposter syndrome kicked in. Who am I to cover the Forbidden City? There are historians, academics, documentary makers who spent entire careers on this. But my guests surprised me. They said, Chen, we searched before we came. Podcast, YouTube vlogs, there's no Chinese person doing this in English online. Or at least not enough. I couldn't believe that. So I looked myself, especially within the podcast space. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. They were right. The content about China's most important landmarks, about Chinese culture, about Beijing, is overwhelmingly made by people who aren't from here or AI-generated guys. There are not enough Chinese voices out there who's actually from China. And I can't accept that. If I care about how Beijing and China get represented, which is the entire reason A Day in Beijing exists, I can't just leave the biggest stories out completely. The landmarks are why people come. That's where they start. So that's where I need to be too. So here I am, giving podcasts a go. A one-woman band, just like the experience creation thing I'm doing. I'm the production team, I'm the product developer, I'm the social media manager, the sales team, and the accountant. Not a very good accountant so far, I have to say. Just a laptop, a microphone, and an absurd amount of stubbornness and passion. And here's what you can expect from this podcast. Some episodes are landmark companions. The Forbidden City, the Great Wall, Temple of Heaven, the Summer Palace, stories and histories first, with everything else you need to know before you actually visit. Listen if you're curious about why this place is so iconic, or press play before you visit, or even at the gates. Some episodes go beyond the landmarks entirely, into the Beijing that most visitors never see. Hutong history and the family still living in it, making opera one of the oldest performing arts in Beijing. Niujie, the biggest Muslim quarter in the city that barely anyone talks about. The craft beer revolution, the independent coffee roasters. And the stories that never made into any guidebooks or eyeball-grabbing, short attention span social videos. And some episodes will tackle conscious and ethical travel directly. What it actually means to travel responsibly in a country like China, how mass tourism affects local communities, what happens when you choose independent over chance, and why that choice matters more than most people realize. Eventually, I want to bring guests on. Not celebrities, not influencers, the people who actually made this city what it is. Native Beijingers who's been here forever, and the people who choose Beijing as their home. The winemakers, yes, we make very decent wine here. The lantern makers, the street vendor who's been cooking the same dish for over 4 decades. The photographer who's documented every corner of the city. And the underground rock bands and the hidden rave DJs. The woman running a yoga studio inside a temple courtyard. The running club that picks up cigarette butts on their route. Beijing explained by Beijingers and by the people who adopted the city and made it theirs. That's the whole point. I'm building this completely on my own, so I'll be honest. Every follow, every review, every share genuinely matters. Rate the show if you like it. I love to hear from you all. Leave a comment, send me a DM, tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to hear. Your questions might become the next episodes. Find me on Instagram at A Day in Beijing. That's where I share tips about Beijing, what to do, where to go, your conscious travel playbook for the city. It's also where you can book an experience with me. Next up, the Forbidden City. 3 parts, and I promise you've never heard the stories told like this. I'm Chen. See you in the episodes. Hit play. Happy listening.